Hello there, welcome back to the BOSStimator. Ryan Frick, personal trainer. Today, this is going to be the third tutorial on cost books. So let's get right into it. We've discussed what cost books were, where you get them from, how you download them, and what the defaults are. So you end up getting there by clicking the estimating button, which takes you to the estimating defaults and detail page. Then you can click right on the form link to get into cost books. This is the cost book that we originally had incorporated within our database. So let's get right into that one. And now this is, we went through this a little bit quickly, but this is the main page is a detail page. A detail page has the information relating to what you should find in this cost book. It tells you at the top that this is a 2011 National Electrical Estimator cost book. And then if you go into the next tab, which is units and area modifications, the units of measure, there are only 11 units of measure that are used within this entire cost book. If you go back to the cost book defaults, you'll notice that there are 67 units of measure. The difference is that these 67 are used in some of the other cost books that Craftsman and the BOSStimator have together. There's some 11 total cost books that are through the Craftsman, and if you add all of those up, there's 67 individual units of measure somewhere in that combination. But so within this cost book, there are only 11 units of measure. Okay, the next section is discussing the cost book area modification factor. What this is that when you purchase a cost book, or any cost book, not just the electrical, any cost book that you purchase through us, it comes to you with a standard rates for labor, for materials, for subcontractor equipment, and other costs associated within that cost book. What you need to do though is you need to adjust those to the actual location that you're doing the work in. Let me kind of give you an example. Something that costs $100 to build in Kansas costs $200 to build in New York. Because the labor rates are more, the materials are more, subs are more, equipment are more, and other costs are more. So that's what's known as the area modification. So let's just go in here and we'll just start choosing one. I'm just going to start typing some numbers in for, that's good. As you notice in this, what it's saying is that in that zip code, wherever that may be, the labor cost to perform all scope elements is 6% lower in that zip code than it is at the standard zip code. But the material cost is 1% more in that zip code than it is at the standard. Subcontractors are 6% less. Equipment and other are the same costs. So by adjusting that, it adjusts your cost book to the location that you're actually performing the work in. So by adjusting your cost book to each individual area that you're working, you're getting a more accurate estimate. It's a good practice to go ahead and do this, especially if you're familiar with the area that you're doing the work in, so that way you can get your cost closer to what it actually should be. And that's the purpose behind using cost books, is using the historical data to determine what the cost should be. And then you can adjust that to how you actually perform it after the fact. So let's get into it. I'm going to skip this for right now until we start getting into the tasks and items and stuff like that, and then we'll come back and we'll show you actually what it does. So I just wanted to kind of briefly introduce you to what the modification factors do. Next thing is the categories. The categories are a way that the BOSStimator divides the scope elements down into for easy sorting and also for easy reporting. There's only one major category in this cost book, and it's the electrical category, since this is the electrical database cost book. So let's go ahead and see what's underneath that. Underneath the electrical main category, we have 19 subcategories, or which we call category number 2. You may be more familiar with categories known as divisions in the CSI work breakdown. We use categories here because it's a lot more easy for me to understand that something that is known as electric, wire cable, and let me go underneath that yet. I don't know. Wire is an electrical wire that's aluminum than it would be to say 16.017318.858. Hell, I couldn't tell you what that means, and you can't tell me you know what all those numbers mean either. So this is actually easier to understand than the CSI breakdown. Another reason is if I was using the CSI breakdown, I would actually have to charge you a license fee per each time I used it to each client, and that adds up cost. And we're trying to keep the cost down as much as we can for you guys. So we have the primary category, we have the secondary category, and then we also have the third category, which is a further breakdown, and we just went through the wire. But every one of these have additional breakdowns as well. Like this one is for the, what was this one? This one's for conduit and fittings. So if you see anything that's under this, electric, conduit, fittings, EMT, you know that is electrical metallic tubing. One thing you see on here, though, is the number at the beginning. The sequence is the sequencing that work is usually performed in, and it could be as a scheduling purpose in the future, and that's another component that'll be. So the sequencing is used to help schedule and also for easier. That's how it shows up on your reports, is that sequence. So anyways, that's what categories are and how they relate to the cost book. Each one of the tasks in the cost book is assigned to a category. So I'm going to quickly go over to a task. You can see that this 1 gang duplex receptacle 15 amp box is located within the electrical assemblies box receptacles, and so on and so forth. So of these 13,000, as you go down through here and start going through all these, all of them will have the same primary category but different. So if I looked at this and said electric wire device plates, I can pretty well tell that's going to be the plates for some sort of outlet box or something like that. But that's what categories are. Workforce. Workforce is what crews, or not crews, the workers that are used within this cost book. The only workers that are used within this cost book is an electrician. On other cost books, you may have an electrician, a builder. Let me go back to the default page. If you go over here to the workforce in this, there are some 57 different workforces, and that could be used in multiple different cost books. So these are all the ones in all the cost books. We got 57. This individual cost book only has an electrician that's used throughout in this cost book. The cost book has then you can determine if they're done by an employee or a subcontractor. So if you're doing the work in-house as an electrician, then you're going to be performing it as an employee. And if you go in here and you start pulling down the details behind it, you'll notice that it's identified as the laborer. The electrician is a laborer. If you go back and you change this and you say, you know what, all electrical work is done by a subcontractor, it's not a biggie. You just select it, adjust it to subcontractors. You notice that it's running a query, and then if you go back in here, everything that had electrician in it has now been changed to a subcontractor. If you have 15 different types of workforce involved in it and you adjust each one of them according to who actually performs it, then we can actually determine what a schedule would be and what's going to be performed in-house and out-of-house. So that's what the perform by action does, and it's very useful for you. I'm going to change that back to an employee status, and then we'll go on right to the next thing. As in this cost book, as well as in the BOSStimator, the items that make up the cost book are the individual building blocks behind the tasks. You combined the items to perform the individual tasks. So let's say, for example, this dual element type S 120 volt plug fuses, it has that material involved in it at $8.92. That is an item. The electrician is also an item. So those items combine together to install that fuse. So that's what the items do. And there are some 14,686 different items. some of those items are used multiple times throughout for the tasks. So you need to kind of look throughout it and find out what it amounts up to. So that's what it amounts up to. So you got the items, and then the tasks. Tasks are the same thing in the cost book as they are in your BOSStimator. The tasks are the work that you're actually performing. You have each task has the three categories that we've already talked about. The name of the task, the unit of measure, how you're calculating it. So if you want 5 of those, that's how it counts. The cost per unit, that cost is determined by adding up the items that are below it. So if you add up $8.92 and $1.98, that is exactly $10.90. What the parameter does, the parameter is another component of the BOSStimator where you can utilize the BOSStizer. The BOSStizer allows you to go online, import a set of drawings and digitize that drawings on your screen, and then link those to the individual tasks or assemblies or packages or templates on your estimates. So when you're digitizing it, you're actually doing a material takeoff at the same time, which saves time, less hand action. But let's say, for example, if you're on there on a set of drawings and you click up and you're clicking like these duplex receptacle outlets, and you click a whole bunch of the outlets, that it adds up one at a time, and that's a count function. So once you're done digitizing, it'll send back they digitize 57 counts of this item, which links it to these. And that'll be more explained in a lot further detail in the BOSStizer module and the videos for the BOSStizer. But for right now, that's what the parameter is. It's a link to the BOSStizer. And the scope of work is a more detailed description than what's there of exactly what's in there. You have normal waste and so on and so forth. And you can look through this and see that there's a whole bunch more information that goes along with this individual task. This cost book doesn't have any assemblies, packages, or templates associated with it, so that basically makes up the cost book. Let's get back into one though real quick, and I'm going to go all the way up to the top so it's easier to find it, and go to the very top one. Notice that the material is $36.30, and the electrician is $39.58. If you went to the workforce, you can come in here and you can adjust that electrician to the actual whatever you want, and it's easy to do. We went over this in other tutorials, but you can just click on the go to, and then you can come in here and adjust the labor rate, the base rate, the fringe benefit percentages, and goes up and down. And just by coming in here, we are at $30.27 right now. But if I selected that and I said the base rate for them is $40.45, everything else will be adjusted up, and then when you close it, it's running and it's updating all the stuff and throughout. So the base rate now, the wage is burdened out at $46.36. The base rate used to be $30.27. So you can see everything's went up. And if you go back to the individual tasks, the task rates also went up as well. So you can see that by just adjusting your rate for your electrician within the cost book, that will adjust it in every one of the items and every one of the tasks, assemblies, packages, and templates within that cost book as well. So let's get back into there though, and I'm going to adjust that back down to where we had it as a standard, which was $30.27, and it was at $46.36, but I'm going to go back down. $46.36 is now $39.58. and $39.58. So as you can see, I just adjusted that up back and forth just by quickly going into here. We discussed you can go in here and you can manually adjust these anytime you want to. It's advisable not to adjust the production rate or the material cost within the cost book itself. It's more advisable to adjust those within your own personal database once they've been merged, and you do that right here. But that'll be in another tutorial of how to merge that into your database and how to look at it. And so let's go, and we're 16 minutes in. That's enough for this tutorial. Take a look at this cost book and how it relates and all the components that make it up, and the items and the tasks, and play around with it a little bit more. And like always, if you ever have any questions relating to anything in the BOSStimator, always feel free to call the boss.